$45 million. That is what it cost to build the Houston Astrodome in 1965, the world's first fully enclosed, air-conditioned, domed stadium, sitting on what was recently a swamp 6 miles south of downtown Houston. They called it the eighth wonder of the world. President Lyndon Johnson attended opening night and called it massive and beautiful. Mickey Mantle hit the first indoor home run in baseball history. A year later, they invented an entirely new kind of grass just to keep it alive and named it after the building. For 35 years, it was the most famous stadium on Earth. Then both teams left. Then it sat empty for over 20 years, costing Harris County millions annually while the county argued about what to do with it. It is still standing right now. This is not just a story about a stadium. It is a story about a city that built the future, watched the future become the past, and still cannot bring itself to let go. Houston, in the early 1960s, was expanding rapidly on a wave of oil money, but securing a Major League Baseball expansion franchise came with a strict condition. The city had to build a covered stadium to shield players and fans from the oppressive Texas heat and mosquitoes. Enter Roy Hofheinz. A former Houston mayor, Harris County judge, and flamboyant entrepreneur, Hofheinz envisioned an indoor arena that would rival the grandeur of the Roman Colosseum. In 1960, Hofheinz purchased a 495-acre tract of coastal swamp south of downtown for $5 million. He spent $1.2 million of public money to drain the site, then sold 180 of those cleared acres back to Harris County to serve as the footprint for the stadium. While voters had approved an $18 million bond in 1960 to finance the arena, the final construction cost ultimately soared toward $45 million. Construction began in 1963. Crews worked at a breakneck pace, completing the massive steel and lucite structure in November 1964, 6 months ahead of schedule. To align with Houston's rising status as the home of NASA's Manned Spacecraft Center, Hofheinz rebranded the local baseball team from the Colt 45s to the Astros. Yet, the dome was as much a monument to Hofheinz's personal ego as it was to civic progress. Built directly into the stadium's structure, the judge constructed a lavish 5-story private apartment. The comedian Bob Hope famously described the gaudy decor as early King Farouk. The suite remained Hofheinz's personal sanctuary until demolition crews gutted the space in 1988 to install 10,000 additional seats, erasing the physical proof of a time when a public coliseum doubled as a private empire. On April 9, 1965, the Grand Experiment opened its doors to the public. A sold-out crowd of 47,879 spectators flooded the gates for an exhibition game between the newly christened Houston Astros and the New York Yankees. High above right field, in the owner's private box, President Lyndon B. Johnson watched the spectacle while eating chicken and ice cream, pronouncing the structure massive and beautiful. In the 6th inning, Mickey Mantle launched a solo shot into center field, recording the first indoor home run in Major League history and validating the arena as a true baseball field. The physical structure was a marvel of mid-century engineering. It rose 18 stories at its peak, with the playing field set 25 feet below the surrounding parking lot to maintain a low profile. Overhead, the roof held 4,796 clear lucite panels designed to admit natural light for a grass field. Inside, spectators sat in comfortable, cushioned seats, enjoying 5 themed restaurants, 53 luxury suites, and an air conditioning system that maintained a constant 72 degrees, shielding them from the oppressive Texas humidity. In its first year, the venue drew 4 million visitors. More than 400,000 sightseers paid a single dollar just to take a tour, making the structure the 3rd most visited man-made attraction in the United States, trailing only Disneyland and the National Monuments in Washington. That November, Billy Graham's 10-day crusade drew 376,419 attendees, proving the arena could host massive cultural gatherings just as easily as sports. The building had captured the national imagination, discarding its official county name to become known worldwide by a far more ambitious title, the 8th Wonder of the World. The very architectural triumph that made the indoor stadium possible almost immediately threatened to make it unplayable. During the inaugural 1965 season, outfielders found themselves completely blinded by the glare reflecting off the 4,796 clear Lucite roof panels. Desperate for a quick fix, management painted the panels, which successfully blocked the blinding light but also halted photosynthesis. Within weeks, the natural Bermuda grass rotted and died. Rather than rethink the roof, Roy Hofheinz contracted the Monsanto Chemical Company to install a synthetic playing surface in 1966, naming the plastic carpet AstroTurf after his team and building. It was a revolutionary engineering solution, but it permanently severed the stadium's connection to the natural world. This pattern of sacrificing the dome's original character to solve immediate problems soon claimed its most beloved feature. At the stadium's opening, Hofheinz had installed a massive $2.1 million animated scoreboard. Armed with cartoon cowboys, a snorting bull, and thunderous light shows, the board was a sensory spectacle. Fans routinely cheered home runs just to watch the massive display erupt. Yet, in 1988, Houston Oilers owner Bud Adams demanded more seating capacity. In a $67 million public renovation, the iconic scoreboard was dismantled to squeeze in 15,000 extra seats. The visceral heart of the eighth wonder was carved away to appease a demanding football franchise, leaving the dome permanently diminished. In 1968, the Houston Oilers moved in, making the Astrodome a dual Major League Baseball and National Football League home. The building grew beyond baseball to become Houston's civic cathedral, a massive stage designed for spectacular, constant reinvention. From 1966 to 2002, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo drew millions of visitors annually, turning the air-conditioned marvel into a giant dust-filled dirt arena. It was a venue where subcultures and spectacles collided. In 1971, daredevil Evel Knievel drew over 100,000 spectators to watch him set a world record by leaping his motorcycle over 13 cars. 2 years later, on September 20, 1973, the Dome hosted the legendary Battle of the Sexes tennis match. Bobby Riggs entered the arena on a litter carried by women, while Billie Jean King arrived in a golden carriage. King defeated Riggs before a record crowd of 30,472 fans and an estimated 90 million global television viewers, establishing the Dome as a national cultural theater. The facility's sheer size allowed it to swallow massive national events whole. In 1992, the Republican National Convention occupied the arena, forcing the Astros onto an exhausting, month-long road trip. But the Dome's most emotional moments were musical. On February 26, 1995, Tejano superstar Selena performed her final concert here before 66,746 adoring fans. Her tragic murder 5 weeks later, followed by the posthumous release of the live recording, forever tied the building to her memory. 7 years later, in February 2002, country music legend George Strait closed out the stadium's historic run with a record-shattering final performance before 68,266 fans. For nearly 4 decades, the Astrodome remained the beating heart of American pop culture, driven by the sheer scale of the events that brought millions through its gates. By the 1990s, the synthetic playing surface that once solved the Dome's light crisis had become a major physical liability. Professional athletes grew to detest AstroTurf, viewing the surface as a career-threatening hazard. Medical studies increasingly linked the hard, unforgiving green carpet to higher rates of severe knee and ankle injuries. Players' unions began actively lobbying for a return to natural grass fields, pointing to the Dome's turf as the worst offender. On August 19, 1995, the field's physical decay caused a national embarrassment. A preseason matchup between the Houston Oilers and the San Diego Chargers was canceled entirely when players and referees walked the field and deemed the uneven, deteriorating turf too dangerous for play. The constant conversion of the stadium floor between baseball and football had torn the turf's seams, leaving visible gaps over the hard concrete beneath. This public debacle gave Oilers owner Bud Adams the ultimate leverage to demand a brand new, publicly funded stadium. When Harris County officials refused, Adams severed ties with the city. On December 15, 1996, the Oilers played their final home game in the Dome before a bitter, half-empty crowd, subsequently packing up for Tennessee, where they would eventually be rebranded as the Titans. Decades of football history in Houston were wiped away in a single afternoon, leaving behind a trail of public debt and a stadium suddenly half empty. With the football team gone, the Houston Astros held all the remaining cards. The baseball franchise made parallel demands for a new facility, but unlike their acrimonious standoff with the Oilers, local leadership cooperated. To keep baseball in Houston, the city agreed to fund a state-of-the-art downtown ballpark designed to offer everything the Astrodome no longer could: a retractable roof, a view of the skyline, and a real grass playing field. On October 9, 1999, the Astros played their final game under the dome, closing out 34 years of indoor baseball history. The opening of downtown Enron Field in 2000 finalized the transition, stripping the eighth wonder of its primary tenants and leaving the massive, expensive structure completely hollowed out. A revolutionary building suddenly without a purpose. On August 31, 2005, the hollowed-out stadium was called back into service for its final, most profound civic duty. In the wake of Hurricane Katrina, Harris County opened the Astrodome to house thousands of displaced families fleeing the devastation in New Orleans. At its peak, approximately 27,000 evacuees found refuge within the climate-controlled concrete bowl and the adjacent Reliant Park. The former playground of billionaires and sports icons became a makeshift city of survival. Medical teams, pharmacists, and mental health workers established operations directly on the floor where baseball legends once played. Along the stadium's massive concrete pillars, the glittering advertisements of the past were replaced by handwritten notes and flyers, desperate attempts by evacuees to find missing family members separated in the chaos. Yet even this humanitarian triumph was cut short by the realities of modern professional sports. By September 16th, the county relocated the remaining residents to alternative housing. The reason was unyielding. The surrounding parking lots were required for the first home game of the National Football League's Houston Texans at the adjacent new stadium. The brief revival did little to stabilize the building's rapidly deteriorating finances. The Astrodome's net operating income plummeted from $3.6 million in 2002 to a mere $69,191 by 2006. When the last evacuees departed, they left behind an empty concrete shell. The eighth wonder of the world had hosted its final major gathering, proving its ultimate worth not as a monument to athletic spectacle, but as a sanctuary for those with nowhere else to go. In 2008, the Houston Fire Department issued 9 fire code violations, declaring the building unfit for occupancy. The citations permanently closed the gates to the public and ended the era of ticketed events, leaving the grandest stage in Texas classified as a safety hazard. By 2013, the decline forced a partial exterior demolition. Workers dismantled the walkway towers and ticket booths to prepare for asbestos abatement. As the structure was cleared, Harris County held a massive public yard sale where thousands of fans bought up physical pieces of their youth, stadium seats, rusted signs, and faded patches of AstroTurf. That November, county officials placed a $217 million bond proposal on the ballot to convert the dome into a convention and event center. But the public's patience had run out. 53% of voters rejected the bond, leaving the structure without a funded future. Instead, the empty shell became a legal paradox. In 2014, the dome was added to the National Register of Historic Places and designated a Texas State Antiquities landmark. These listings made the building nearly impossible to tear down, yet provided no money to rebuild it. This state of suspended animation culminated on April 9, 2018, with an event called Domecoming. Within 2 hours, fans claimed 25,000 free tickets just to step inside. Wearing vintage Astros and Oilers gear, they walked onto a bare concrete floor where the field used to be. They saw rolled-up turf piled in the outfield and looked up at stands where many of the iconic rainbow seats were already gone, sold off as souvenirs. It was a massive gathering of ghosts, proving that while Houston could not bear to destroy its past, it still had no way to save it. In 2019, Harris County approved a $105 million phased plan to raise the arena floor, intending to install ground-level parking and create a flexible event venue, but the project stalled. As of 2024, the building remains largely intact from the outside, a familiar concrete curved silhouette on the Texas skyline. Yet inside, the once heralded eighth wonder of the world serves primarily as a secure storage facility for the surrounding NRG Park complex, housing lawnmowers, staging, and surplus equipment. Immediately next door stands its modern replacement, NRG Stadium, casting a literal shadow over the dome's western facade, a constant, unescapable contrast between Houston's active present and its mothballed past. Maintaining this silent, vacant giant costs county taxpayers tens of millions of dollars in ongoing upkeep, yet the building still has no settled public role. It is not a completed ruin to be forgotten, but an active, expensive policy question. Houston remains paralyzed by an unresolved choice. Do they spend the massive sums required to transform it, pay the millions needed to demolish it, or simply continue paying to preserve a ghost? Today, the eighth wonder stands in silent decay, a concrete tomb for a future that never arrived. As Houston expands, this monument remains frozen in political paralysis, too historic to demolish, yet too costly to resurrect. The empty dome is a haunting reminder that even the boldest dreams can be left behind. What do you think Houston should do with it? Share your thoughts below.